Ladies and gentlemen, we are here on the March 3rd, 2015 to hear an impromptu speech by Celestine. A very short and simple prompt. Be a fountain, not a drain, by Rex Hudler.
Hi everyone, I'm Celestine.
Hi Celestine.
So in our job interviews, one of the things that people say the most is, I am a team player. But what does that really mean? Depending on who you talk to, it can mean nothing or everything. The idea of being team players is such a concept that's so vague and abstract that it's really hard to figure out what people think of it. What Rex Hudler thinks of it, a former Major League Baseball utility player, is that the best team players are fountains, not drains. He encourages people to be fountains, not drains. Again, that's be fountains, not drains. Now what does that mean? That means that you provide. You're the ones who give energy to the team. You're the ones who bring the positivity. You give rather than take. You are a creator of consequence rather than someone who waits and selfishly takes from others. You are someone who gives to the people around you and enhances their lives rather than depleting them of their energy or resources.
Good.
So whether it's in a professional context, like we say in our job interviews, or it's in a social context with our friends, or it's on an actual team, as Red Hudler was, what you want to do is to be a fountain, not a drain. This is significant for us because whether it's in any of those contexts, we want to be surrounded by people who are team players too. We want to be those type of people. We may even be able to think of some people right now in our lives, those people who aren't team players. And when we think of them, they're the people who you don't necessarily want playing for your team. You don't want, those should have been the kids that last at gym. Those are the ones that you don't want up next to you at bat. Those are the ones you don't want to spend your weekend nights hanging out with, and the ones that you definitely aren't going to hire to be part of your company. So I will illustrate why we should be fountains and not drains to be the best team players with 3 examples, one for each of the contexts that I previously spoke about. So in my first example, is that in the Ultimate Handbook of Motivational Quotes for Coaches and Leaders, Pat Williams, the author, elaborated on the quote by Rex Hudler, explaining that fountains are the players on the team that look for positivity. They're the ones who are cheering from the sides and who are bringing energy in each huddle, each meetup, and each game to the other players. And they're the ones who really make the team a team. They provide rather than take from the team. Carlin Brooks detailed Rex Hudler's legend in What Then Is This Child Going to Be?, his book that was published in 2010. Rex Hudler was nicknamed the Wonder Dog because not only did he play amazingly on the field, he was also always the first to strive to encourage his teammates. He was always the one who was cheering the loudest on the bench for his fellow players, and he was the one who always looked for positivity in the team. Carlin Brooks wrote on and on about what a fan he was of Rex Hudler for the attitude he had towards the game. He played with an unabashed passion for baseball, and he was always someone who you could count on in the team. Rex Hudler remains to be very highly regarded among other baseball fanatics for the attitude he had towards the team and towards as a teammate. And that's why he was able to be the best kind of team player, which is no surprise because he was the one who came up with this quote, that you should be a fountain and not a drain to be the best team player. Now the second example I have is for the social context, and this is one that I know personally. In my friend group, we have a friend, Brittany, who recently was broken up with by her boyfriend after a 2-month-long relationship. She has been exhausting all of us in our daily interactions. She's been texting all of us with over-exaggerations of how she's feeling and causing us to worry unnecessarily about her. An example would be last week when she texted me at 3 a.m., help, and then I replied with what? She said, with living. The next day, me and my other friend scheduled an intervention because we were genuinely concerned about her well-being to send a text like that. And when she showed up, she was very positive and seemed very okay. She spent 30 minutes bashing her ex and didn't really seem to have a problem with needing help to live. She admitted to being over-exaggerative, and we had to tell her that she was depleting all of her energy, and she was being a drag to all of us. And especially after having virtually disappeared for the 2 months while she was in the relationship, and afterwards not asking what we were doing in our own lives and what was happening with us, it felt like there was no give and take. She was depleting us and draining our friendship without trying to provide anything or care about us. She was being a drain instead of a fountain. And to be completely honest, that's usually the first ones that you don't want to spend your weekend nights hanging out with. Of the group, she is the weak link. And if this friendship continues on like that, it may not be one worthwhile to have. So even in a group context, in a team like that, on a social team, you want to be someone who gives. Then the best kind of team players in that setting are also the ones who give, the ones who are fountains, not drains. The third example I have is in the professional context. According to Adam Grant, who wrote the New York Times best-selling book, Give and Take, givers, like fountains, are the best performers in their career fields. He found in his research that from the most productive engineers to the salespeople with the highest revenue, the people who give and offer advice and their time and their efforts to the other people in the company, or even outside the reaches of their company, were the ones who succeeded the most in their fields. It was the takers, the ones who tried to take selfishly, who tried to gain without ever giving, and looked at how much they could get from each interaction professionally, instead of thinking how they could help others. Those were the ones who performed the worst in their field, and those were the ones who were least likely to succeed in his research. Which is true, and it brings me back to the beginning. When we're at job interviews, we always say that we're team players because we subconsciously know that the team players are the ones who are likely to succeed in professional context, social context, and on an actual team like Rex Hudler. And when we go to a job interview and we say that we're team players, let's know what we mean by that. Let's back up these credentials with the ability to say that you are a fountain, not a drain. To be a fountain and not a drain in any context in your life, so that when you go to that job interview and you say you're a team player, you know what you mean and you have the stuff to back yourself up to get employed. Thank you.
6:52, okay? Where are we? Yes. Sure.
So a compliment was you were...
Start with your name, sir.
Oh, hi, I'm Alan.
Hi, Alan.
So it was a great speech. I loved how you were really confident about what you were talking about. And one thing that really standed out to me was the fact that you talked about Brittany, your friend, and that we all have like that one friend that like acts like that. So I think everyone relates to your experience. So that was good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Alan. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Rana.
Hi, Rana.
I really liked your speech. It's always personable, which is really nice to hear. Well, obviously, you know not to, but you used a note card, which was an issue for this speech, but usually don't, so just practice. Even though it's finals week, you know. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Liked your speech a lot. One thing I want to compliment Celestine on doing is researching her author and really getting into his life and knowing what the context of the quote. And I encouraged all of you to Google your quotes and to really get in and know them and to present the author's qualifications and so on and so forth, and read the whole book if you can, or the page it's from, or whatever, and you did that nicely. I too was puzzled why you chose to use a quote card, although you didn't use it very much, but I have to take off a couple points for you using it. You understand.
Whether or not it was
You're
worth
balancing
because
it.
I wanted to
Do the
mention
quotes.
Garland Brooks and the exact name of the book, and I didn't want to compromise.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that, and you had some quotes in your first part of your main body too, so that was good. Well, let's go through this and talk about it. Let me first say that Alan Alda, the actor, talking about going in the wilderness, I thought was laughable. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what you were going to do with that.
I was going to talk about stepping out of your comfort comfort zone, and he actually mentioned in an interview with the AV Club, he said that like what's made his life meaningful is by doing things that terrify him. So I was going to use the example of Steve Jobs.
Oh, I see. So you were going to build that up.
Out of their comfort zone.
And I thought this Rebecca West quote was a mouthful. It was a mouthful. Anyway, it was inelegant to me. Anyway, let me go through your speech and give you some feedback. I liked your introduction about the team player and the Rex Hudler, that you knew him and that you had the setup that was good. You got our attention, and that was nice. The one thing I took a point off for was I didn't like your preview, and I don't know if you didn't want to have a preview and say, I'm going to tell you about a little more about Rex's life, I'm going to tell you about professional contact, and I'm going to tell you about the importance of being a team player when I explain why I agree with the importance of this quote. But you didn't do that. So you want to give us, a roadmap of where you're going to go, and you always want to have that. On your first point, I love the fact that you went in and got more information about him and quotes about him from others, and that was perfectly fine that you used your note card for that, and that you gave us historical evidence that he really was an amazing guy and really was a fountain of giving and not a drain on people or a team or anything. And that was really excellent and showed really a good initiative. So it shows me that you're respecting this class and you're taking it seriously and you're doing the work. Yeah. On the second social context, the story of your friend, the whiner that's being hysterical over losing her boyfriend. Yeah, that was a good story, well told, an intervention because you were worried, but then she came bopping in and she was fine. So she was just using all of you, and that's sort of a sad story. There was it reminded me as I was hearing it in the, there's on Netflix, there's a series about Washington, D.C. I don't know if you've heard of it. House of Cards, yeah, you heard of it. And this fella in there gets an AIDS test. And, he comes back and he says, she says, you don't have AIDS, So he goes out to his girlfriend and he goes, I have AIDS. To get sympathy. And there are people that are drains, that want to do hysterical things and want to suck the life out of people and relationships and everything else. So anyway, I thought your story was good and supportive, and I liked the way you went back to your quote. And I want you all to do that, to go back. And if you can't go back to your quote, it says your story is not working. On your third quote, the professional context, again, a good quote from another book from the New York Times, high credible source. The year would have been nice when it was published, since you're using a card. But the job interview, that should have perked everybody up, because some of these kids are seniors and they're going to be out there in the big bad world soon, begging for employment. And so they're going to need to impress an employer that they're a fountain and not a drain, and that they have something to offer. So that was good. Summary, conclusion, and tieback were all fine, and you used your time. My one concern was just the card and the lack of the preview. But you did a nice job. Thank you. How's our time? Do we have time for one more? You're volunteering? Yeah, great. Get up there. I need your blah, blah, blah. I need your self-evaluation.
Oh, I know, I forgot it. I'm so sorry. I never forget
Your
anything.
dog ate your homework. Okay,
No,
good. Yeah. Okay, just a minute. Let me put this away. Okay. Where are you here? Do you remember? There you go. Okay. All right. All right, we're going to hear an impromptu speech from Aseret. She's going to speak on the question, they can do all because they think they can, by Virgil. Heavy.
Have you guys ever wondered why a bird can fly, why a dog can bark, or why a fish can swim? It has got to be more than just the physical abilities. I mean, after all, can't we do things that we want to do? Why can't we be birds? Why can't we be fish? Why can't we be dogs? Well, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but wouldn't it be wonderful to think that we could do the things that we thought we could? Wouldn't it be wonderful to imagine ourselves being the next president, climbing Mount Everest? All these things we can do. And Virgil says it best. They can do all because they think they can. Now you should all be able to relate to this quote. After all, you're at UCLA, one of the most competitive institutions in the world, and you did it because you thought you could. In my speech, I will be analyzing 3 different examples from my life and how you can apply this quote even after you continue to pursue other endeavors such as job opportunities or graduate school. Now, telling yourself that you think you can simply because you believe in yourself instills confidence in you. Our whole life, we are encouraged to believe that we can do, that everything is possible. We are encouraged to believe that we can open as many doors as we possibly can. Now this is true. I will start off with a very personal example. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, an underprivileged community that is notorious for gang violence and police activity. My whole life I heard how I was just another statistic, ready to fail at life. The only people supporting me were my family. Kids around me would bully me because I was so into school. I wanted to be more than a statistic in my own community. I wanted to serve as an inspiration for these kids that were being shot. Elementary school, people that I went to school with, imprisoned in gangs, they had no other options. That's the only way to survive in South Central Los Angeles. But I was not one of them. I believe I could, and I did. At first, however, it wasn't very promising. I became a statistic, and I was put in school probation. I was failing almost half of my classes, and nobody was encouraging me. My parents didn't go to college. My parents never made it to high school. How could they possibly support me to do something that they had no idea about? I continued to push myself nonetheless. And it wasn't until my senior year of high school that I did because I knew that I could. A high school professor of mine taught me the value of self-confidence and self-motivation. He told me that the only reason why people are successful is because they know deep down that they will be successful. This changed my perspective in life, and it elevated me from my circumstances. I didn't want to become another statistic. I didn't want to become pregnant like half my high school friends were. I wanted to be more. I raised my grade point average, and I became ASB president in high school. I applied to the most prestigious universities, and I got accepted into UC Berkeley to one of their most competitive programs. I did it. And it was all because I believed that I was going to do it. I was at Berkeley, From South Central Los Angeles, I was at Berkeley, the most prestigious university. And why did I do it? Because I knew that I would. My second example. We all got to UCLA because we had a vision. The difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person is that deep down, they are willing to believe in themselves when nobody else does. We've all been there. We tell people our dreams and we share with them what we want to do and they laugh. We dream too high or we aim too high. Well, guess what? The people that are successful, that are running companies, that are becoming the next president, that are becoming officials, they had a dream. And they made it possible. Actions always speak louder than words. And when you believe that you can, you will go out there and open as many doors as you possibly can. Now my third example, how can we possibly apply this quote to after graduation or even here in our journey at UCLA? Many of us are moving on to graduate programs that are highly competitive. We may not be the brightest, we may not have the highest LST scores or the GRE scores. But if you believe in yourself deep down that you can and that you will, anything is possible. And that is the power of Virgil's quote. This quote knows no sexual orientation, it knows no social class, it knows no racially specific audience. This quote speaks to all of us and it speaks to humanity. When you believe that you can, you will accomplish anything that you possibly want. Now, we may not become birds because we can't grow wings out of nowhere. But what if you believed in yourself one of these days, woke up, believed in yourself, and you did? I didn't believe in myself coming into this classroom. I didn't know that I could possibly stand in front of you all and not be self-conscious. Yet I am. And it's not my mind that magically taught me how to be a more confident person. It was my actions. Because when you set your mind to do something, your actions will follow that, and that has to do with the self-fulfilling prophecy. Your actions will follow your thoughts, and that's because of the positive feedback that exists between mind and action. I have given you several examples from my personal life, how you can continue pursuing this quote. You can do anything that you set your mind to. And they can do because they think they can. See, everybody started with a vision. Beyonce didn't just become Beyonce. Barack Obama didn't just become president. He believed that he could, so he did. And as I stand here before you, let these words resonate. You can do all because you think you can. Now, what would you do if you believed that you could? Would you climb Mount Everest, or would you become our next president? Thank you.
Time 7:18. Pretty good. Okay, where are we here?
Astra, you did so good. And this was like your best speech. You seemed so confident up there, especially compared to the other two. And I don't know, I loved you just like grabbed my attention. I think it's because your stories were personal. But I'm really proud of you. Like, good job.
Improvement.
All right, I think the stories were great. Just one thing that you kind of left us on a cliffhanger with getting into Berkeley. That sounds like something else that you could have like maybe worked into your speech. How you ended up here.
Okay, good. This is, when you're writing a screenplay, sometimes when they do cards for the audiences to fill out and they ask, what did you like about the screenplay, what didn't you like? Sometimes they say, well, what happened to this character? What happened to that character? And so, writers don't like to leave characters or things dangling. And you left Berkeley dangling in your speech, and I too was intrigued that you went to Berkeley and you're at UCLA. And in the vernacular of our textbook, there's a story there, and I would like to have heard it. So, Virgil, who is Virgil, would have liked to have known a little bit about this philosopher and his background, and some, you know, a few of us know who Virgil is, but not everyone does. Virgil sounds like a kind of a strange name that no one gives a kid anymore, but was he a philosopher? Who was he? And the same thing, the emphasis on they can, do all because they think they can. Slower reading the quotes so it sinks in is good. Your preview was interesting. I guess it was compelling that you used all personal examples. You could have used some others, but you chose to go completely personal, and that was fine. So your first narrative about South Central and your difficulties, and then a high school senior teacher who told you, stop believing all the negative voices and the negativity and start believing in yourself, and was a turning point and an epiphany for you, was a good story, and just would have liked to have had you more often and seamlessly go back to Virgil and say, and even though I hadn't heard of Virgil's quote, it was true that because they think they can say. And in your second quote of the vision, this is where you were the lightest, and I would have liked you to have developed that more. You were light in that, developing that thought of having a vision. But I agree, if you don't have the dream and the vision, you're not going to get anywhere. It's sort of like you gotta have a model or a vision that you're aspiring to, and then you work hard to get there. On your third example of relating it to the students here about applying to grad school and their LSATs and stuff, I thought that was good audience analysis. I liked your detailed summary, and I liked your tie back to birds with wings and all of that stuff, and that you finally repeated your quote again in the end. A significant improvement over the quarter, much more confidence, and that was good. But still some ways to go, just in terms of being more confident, smiling more, being more comfortable in your own skin up there when you're speaking publicly. Just don't look like someone's putting you over the coals. But hey, I'm going to go up here and speak. It's fine. I can do this. Okay? Thank you. Okay, our work is done for the day. How many people are left in this room right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Does anybody want to do it today, right now? Does anybody want to get it over with today, right now, and can stay? Yeah, go up to my lab and do it now in Rolfe Hall. No? Okay. Just a thought, because it's going to get real tight next Thursday. Yeah. Wait, let me turn this off.